In a barren land, an envoy of merchants was ambushed by monsters. It was a group of goblins running and aiming to kill the envoys and steal their goods. While those goblins who had gone wild were running, the hired mercenaries of the envoy were preparing for that attack. While he watches his mercenaries fighting the goblins, this fat guy who seems to be the owner of the envoy is starting to curse because day after day there are attacks like this. But little did he know, there was a goblin who had slipped from the watchful eye of those mercenaries and was preparing to ambush him who is the owner of the emporium. The owner of the emporium was alarmed when he heard the screeching of goblins behind him, so he tried to see what it was. But one mercenary came in running to counter the attack of the goblin and was already released a slash to the goblin who was trying to bash his head. With one slash the goblin was cut in half. He raised his shield trying to block the attack of another goblin. Then he slashed that goblin who was pushed away, but after cutting that goblin down, another goblin who was angry seeing his kind slayed like that appeared. Since it is already too late to raise his shield back, this mercenary just grabs the head of the goblin and presses it so hard. And then this crazy mercenary ripped that goblin in half, which shocked the emporium owner. This cold-blooded mercenary just looks down on the slain goblin. The emporium owner asks to rip apart the goblins with your bare hands. Just who are you? But that mercenary is from another world. He liked games since he was young. That is not a sin, at the very least, not that big of a sin. He ended up in this land with a caste system and poverty. Betrayals and murder were almost normal scenarios. And last but not the least is that countless monsters appear. This guy's name is Dalen, but no, that was not his real name in his previous world. All of these pieces of information were written by Dalen in his diary. Then one of the mercenaries approached Dalen and told him that it was time to change shifts. This bald mercenary was shivering, saying that right now it is getting cold. Dalen starts to stand up. He asks, "So, nothing much happened, huh?" The bald mercenary replied, "It was quiet. Not a single goblin appeared." Dalen starts fixing his things and he says, "Is it because I am patrolling inside the labyrinth city now?" The bald mercenary says, "In any case, it is getting colder outside. Winter is coming, so it is natural, but since I am from the southern countryside, I cannot get used to it." One of the mercenaries said that they could already see Paulchen over there. Dalen told the bald guy to have a good rest since he would go. The bald guy also bid him goodbye and told him good work. Dalen hurriedly jumps down the carriage to go to the city. 2 years had already passed. It has been 2 years since the tutorial. The starting point of this game is known as the Bastion of Humanity, the Labyrinth City Paulchen. Dalen looked at the city and he was amazed by it. In his mind, it is on a completely different level compared to when I saw it on the screen. It is a huge city where hundreds of thousands of people live. It is also the sole path to safely go down to the underground labyrinth. There is no other way that will let us avoid the monsters coming up from the labyrinth and gather countless treasures buried underneath. Also, based on the setup, there is a wish stone at the very bottom of the labyrinth that will grant you one thing. Honestly, it is probably the only way to go back. There is no other way that will let us avoid the monsters coming up from the labyrinth and gather countless treasures buried underneath. Then some man called Dalen. It was Bolkma Galios, the Galios Emporium owner. Dalen humbly greeted the Emporium owner, but Bolkma didn't want Dalen to call him so formally. Bolkma laughed and said, "We are comrades who face danger together. You can address me casually." Then Dalen starts questioning if Bolkma is alright. Bolkma laughed and said, "Northerners sure are stiff." Dalen asks, "So, did you have something to tell me?" Bolkma replies, "You sure are quick-witted. That is what I like about you. I have something I want to offer to you. Would you like to join the Emporium as our personal mercenary?" Hearing that made Dalen shocked. In his mind, I have never seen such an event in this game before. Dalen asks Bolkma what does he meant by joining as his personal mercenary. Bolkma said, "My merchant instincts are telling me that although there are countless superhumans who fly and crawl in this labyrinth city, I can be sure that you will soon stand shoulder to shoulder with them." Dalen asks, "So, are you trying to hire me before that happens?" Bolkma replied, "Yes, it won't be bad for you either. What do you say?" Dalen said, "Thank you, but I will refuse your offer." Bolkma took a sigh and replied, "I knew you would say that." Then he picked something out of his pocket. Bolkma gave his reward and said, "Here is your commission fee, 15 shillings. Dalen, who was confused, asked, "Wasn't my commission fee 10 shillings? I thought I was to receive less for joining halfway through. Bulkma replied, think of the rest as an investment fee of sorts. Bulkma laughed and said, I want to solidify my relationship with a prospective warrior. Just don't ignore me later on. Dalen told him that it sounds good. Bulkma offers his hand and both of them shake their hands together. Bulkma said, see you later, Northern Soldier Dalen. While walking inside the city of Palshan, Dalen couldn't take of his mind about the time Bulkma invited him to join as his personal mercenary. In his mind, I have never seen that event before for sure. Does it mean the events of the game can change based on my actions? It was a tempting offer, but what I need to do as soon as I arrive here has been predetermined. He continuously walks in the alleyway finding his destination. Then he arrives at a random inn, thinking that it is the right place he wants to go. Then he enters the inn, and what is in there are different mercenaries chattering with one another. One mercenary was laughing, saying proudly how he bullied some man. Another mercenary was slamming the alcohol on the table while cursing the world because he was so depressed, and then there was also a guy who was sleeping on the side. Dalen confirms the location in his mind by looking at the people in the inn. In his mind, it was definitely here. A bit after the game started, I knew it was in here. But he stopped walking and was alarmed by what he saw. Then he smiled like he already saw the thing that he wanted to find. He was happy because he had already found it. Then a notification pops up saying that he has discovered a pathetic soldier's corpse. A tip has also been released saying that if he can collect this corpse, he can inherit his abilities as well as part of the skills and items. The notification pops up asking if he wants to collect the corpse. In his mind, what will be the greatest weapon to deal with this insanely difficult game? Then he uses the corpse collection saying that he will see through to the end of this game no matter what. This guy likes very difficult games. He likes controllability, commonly referred to as physical, which is why he quickly got bored with easy games. But with this game, he only ended up with continuous game overs. Because this game was tough, even for him. The main character was weak and the monsters were strong. The world inside the game was heading toward ruin, but every NPC ally he had was either seduced by the demons or busy trying to backstab him. He died around in the game 100 times and was determined. With the thought that he would see the end of this game one way or another, he pulled countless all-nighters. He cannot even count how many 100 times he died like that. Then a notification pops up asking if he wants to purchase the selected items. In his mind, yes, I will spend the money. What kind of damn games needs you to spend real money to see the ending? I would have deleted this game if it wasn't for how much time I had invested. Dalen could only slam the liquor out of frustration, thinking that he should just have deleted the game back then. He looks at the corpse lying on the ground. In his mind, luckily, I don't think other people can see it. Inheritor DLC. A feature where a new character can inherit the abilities of the main character who died in the previous playthrough. For players who died several hundred times, this opens up the possibility of endless growth. If there is one flaw, it is that you have to personally go to the location where you died and collect the corpse yourself. As he uses the corpse collection skill, the skills were absorbed by his body and his stats starts increasing. And he has discovered the skill, Dehaman's Armored Combat. Dehaman, who was the Empire's knight, couldn't bear to see his knights, who he taught the armored combat arts he founded, suffer like empty-headed people when they lost their weapons, so he made this. You can use the armor as a shield as well as a weapon with a 4% proficiency right now. Dalen couldn't believe that this character possessed such a good skill. He smiled, thinking that it was really a nice thing. Since his business in that inn is already finished, he wants to go now, but he caught the attention of some drunk guy. Then this drunk guy called him. He said, "Hey, you there? I have never seen your face before. You seem like a mercenary of sorts. What brings you here to this shabby inn? You don't know the business ethics here?" Dalen asks him what he means about business ethics. This drunk guy said, "The transfer tax. It is the rightful money that you should offer to meet Maroon, the manager of this inn. If it is here, you can safely eat and drink without the worry of getting stabbed." Dalen was not threatened at all, and he just took a sigh because he knew where this thing was going. The drunk guy Maroon started showing off the dagger at Dalen, saying that it should have been obvious that Dalen needed to pay him a lot of money. Looking at the dagger, Dalen knew that this guy was the one who killed his previous character before that he had collected the corpse right now. Dalen said, "Unfortunately, I don't have any money to give to you." That guy got angry and shouted, "What? You don't have any money?" Dalen told him that, right now, he doesn't have any money. Maroon starts glaring at him, but Dalen doesn't flinch at his provocation and just looks down at Maroon. Then the baldy underling of Maroon starts to move, but Maroon stops him. Maroon said, "Yeah, that is possible. We bothered a poor man for no reason." Maroon asks, "You paid for the alcohol, right?" Dalen told him yes, that he already paid for it. Maroon said, "Then be your way. I will make an exception to let you go." Dalen bid goodbye to Maroon. But while Dalen was looking back trying to go out, suddenly Maroon smiled and tried to pick up the hidden dagger. Then he runs at Dalen, aiming to stab him at the back. But Dalen said that he knew what he was planning and tried to parry down what the evil plan of Maroon was. Then the next thing that happens is that Maroon is punched by Dalen, who breaks down the whole door. Maroon is thrown away outside from just one single punch. Dalen starts cracking his neck looking down at Maroon. He says, "I won't fall for that twice, you idiot bastard." Maroon could only curse as Dalen saw through what he had already planned. Maroon starts calling every underling he has inside to come outside and gang up on Dalen. Those thugs were sweating seeing Dalen. One thug asks, "Is that really a person? Why is he so big?" Another thug also said, "Is he a savage who came down from the north?" Looking at the number of those thugs, Dalen starts scratching his face thinking that it will be a mess. But he smiled because right now he had a new skill, and it was good timing to test it on them. Dalen throws both his shield and his sword, and he clenches his fist. He told everyone to come and attack him. Maroon shouted, "That arrogant bastard! Everyone attack him!" And all the thugs came in running. One thug starts the attack saying that Dalen should have die. Dalen starts to gather energy and he becomes a warrior with full of bloodlust. He activates the skill of Dehaman's armored combat. Then he punches that first guy with his full strength in the abdomen. That poor thug was blown away by that punch. But the battle doesn't end with that one guy being beaten down, as more thugs try to attack Dalen. Dalen just evades their attack, preparing for a counter. Then another guy was taken down by another punch. But even Dalen was strong. There was one guy who had slipped from his sight and was able to land an attack on his back, but that thick stick was broken down after it hit Dalen. That thug couldn't believe it, and he asked why does a human's body was so hard as steel. Then Dalen swipes his hand at the thug, who bashes the wooden stick at his back. As the thugs continue to attack, Dalen has gotten more excited. On the other hand, Maroon was so disappointed and started cursing. He shouted, "Did I not pay you all? What are you doing? Go and beat him up." Another thug tries to thrust his sword at Dalen, but receives a perfect kick in his face before he can land a hit. The attack doesn't end. After beating one down, another thug appears which he punches in the neck that made it go down. One man nearly manages to stab Dalen with his dagger, but Dalen grabs the dagger with his bare hands, causing it to bleed. That man couldn't believe that Dalen grabbed the dagger with just his bare hands, but Dalen was already preparing his counter uppercut and approaching this guy's face at a faster rate. Because of anger, that guy receives a perfect uppercut on the cheeks that makes him lost consciousness instantly. Dalen was annoyed after receiving a wound in his hand. In his mind, "Damn it, I was trying to grab his wrist, not the blade. Is it because the proficiency is still low?" But at that time, Dalen had already beaten down the underlings of Maroon. Dalen looked at his status window and he could only curse because his 4% proficiency turns into 5% proficiency in his skill. He was saying that the game was so freaking hard because, after all of that, only 1% has increased. Then this fat bald guy starts pointing his finger and complaining, but it can be seen that he is shaking maybe from the fear after he saw what happened. This bald guy said, "What have you done? Committing assault in the broad daylight? Even if you are a mercenary, do you think this is allowed?" Dalen glares at him, but this fat bald guy continuously spouting nonsense. The bald guy starts to threaten him about how bad it would get if the guard knew what happened. Dalen didn't like the threat of that guy and started taking out his axe. The next thing that happens is the axe came out spinning and hit the wall near the head of that bald guy. Dalen said, "Oh, sorry, my hand slipped." Then he walks up to the guy to pick up his axe. The bald man was sweating and shaking in fear as Dalen slowly pulled his axe. He asks, "So, What are you trying to say? After beating those thugs, Dalen picks up their money, especially the money from Maroon, who is the inn owner. He said, "You should know who your opponent is before making threats. However, since he is the inn owner, I have earned a lot." Then he goes to a better inn thinking that with the money he got, he will be able to stay in a nice inn with that. The front desk receptionist welcomes Dalen at their inn, which is the Sword and Shield Inn. The receptionist asks, "How long are you planning to stay?" This inn even offers discounts depending on your mercenary rank. Dalen showed him his mercenary tag and said, "For now, I will stay here for 1 week. I am also a silver plate mercenary." The receptionist replied, "Since you are a silver plate mercenary, breakfast and lunch are free. However, dinner would need to be purchased separately. The total price is 7 shillings. Dalen was speechless because even with free food it was still so expensive, but he had no choice but to pay 7 shillings to the receptionist. He goes to his room and starts removing the armor and the weapons he has. He took a deep sigh thinking of a plan for how he can move forward. In his mind, this is the real start. The most important thing before defeating this game is survival. To stop this world's ruin, I need to get stronger. To do that, I need money and experience. With my current abilities and equipment, there is no way I can do it. I need money to get good equipment, and I need to level up to use the Inheritor ability. Thanks to my countless plays, the corpses of my character are all over the continent. If I can collect all of them, I can get much stronger than before. The time is tight. I need to prepare as quickly as possible. A special commission where I can earn money and collect corpses at the same time. I should go meet the owner of the nest tomorrow. But in the alleyway of Paulshan, there is a woman inside the house where a crow sign can be seen. That woman was looking at the papers and information that was sent to her. She said, "Oh, Dalen, huh? A soldier from the north." The next morning, Dalen goes out to the inn and the receptionist tells him to have a safe trip. In his mind, then, shall I be off? Dalen walks in some random alleyway and he arrives at the house where a crow sign can be seen. In his mind, I think I have arrived. Even if this is a back alley, it is old. Dalen enters that place. Then he asks if there is anyone in there to receive him, but there was no person that can be seen in that area. Dalen started to look around. He was thinking about why the nest's door was open, but the owner of the nest wasn't even there. Dalen stopped from walking when he felt something strange. He felt an eerie aura, maybe because of the intense bloodlust that was aimed at him, and behind that door was a girl holding a crossbow. Dalen starts scratching his face. In his mind, damn, am I an unwelcome guest? I need to get rid of this misunderstanding. He starts knocking on the door and starts to ask if the way he knocks is the right rhythm or not. But the girl behind that door didn't say anything. The girl behind that door took a deep sigh and started talking. When she opens the door, what can be seen is a beautiful woman who is whining. She said, "How many times do I have to say? Outside of business hours, unless it is urgent, don't call me." But this pretty woman was shocked that the person he thought of was different. She said, "Huh? I have never seen you before." Dalen exhaled and replied, he said, "You need to increase your consumer base to do well in the business. This must be a place that is good for a business." The pretty woman smiled and said, "I am quite capable. You speak quite well for a consumer from the north." "Ah, I was trying to say, how dare a savage say that in such a backhanded way? Did you understand?" Dalen told him that he understood it all. Dalen said, "Wouldn't it be good if I was just a savage who immigrated at 2 years old?" The woman was confused and asked, "Immigrated? What?" Dalen replied, "I am saying I have been civilized. Unlike an informant, you seem to be weak in foreign languages." How disappointing. Hearing that, this pretty woman starts bursting into laughter. This pretty girl said, "Sorry, to think I'd be had in such a gentlemanly way. I will apologize." This girl told Dalen to come inside. "I mean to go inside the door, don't think dirty things." She told Dalen that she needed to offer a tea for a customer. When the woman walks inside the door, Dalen sees what this woman is hiding behind her back. Dalen starts sweating thinking that he was almost got pierced in the chest. The pretty girl offers Dalen tea. Then she said, "You must have heard about me, but we should still do introductions, right? I am Sienna. As you can see, I am working as a simple informant for the Crow's Nest." This pretty woman's name is Sienna, the owner of the Crow's Nest and the greatest informant of the Bronze Territory. Dalen also introduces himself. He said, "I heard that if I come here, I can accept several types of commissions." Sienna replied, "You can if you want. Before that, can I ask who introduced you to this place?" Dalen said, "It was Buckman, and he said this as well. If she offers you alcohol, you can drink it, but if she offers tea, don't drink it." Sienna starts sweating after hearing it. She asks, "He is saying all sorts of things. Did you save his life or something?" Dalen told him that it was something like that. Sienna said, "The code that you knocked on the door is something I only let people I consider my real friends know. I was wondering how a person I have never seen before knew that, so I felt you out." Dalen replied, "The collateral is quite expensive just for feeling me out." Sienna started explaining at Dalen. She said, "In my line of work as an informant, you often need to use your life as collateral." "Yeah, that is it. So you are saying you want a commission. However, I don't know you yet. Whether you saved Buckman or threatened him, today is our first time meeting with each other. For now, I can give you trivial commissions, things that wouldn't have much of an impact on my business even if you failed them." Dalen replied, "That is fine. It is our first time meeting anyway." Hearing that made Sienna smile. She said, "Then, shall I witness the abilities of the mighty warrior who ripped goblins to shreds with his bare hands?" Dalen looks at the commission that was given to him after he left the crow's nest. He said, "That woman, she is like a fox. I don't know you yet, huh? That is full of crap. She knew who I was from the moment I arrived at Paulshan." Dalen walks toward the place for the commission. Then he stopped as he arrived at his destination. It was like a sewer area. The place is the low street of the Bronze Territory outskirts. The commission is the Low Street missing person incident. In Dalen's mind, there have been repeated missing people cases happening for a month straight in the same place at the entrance to the Low Street. They occur sometimes in 3-day or 5 days period. Most of the missing people were women or children who were alone. Recently, there was even a young man who went missing, so the offenses seem to be getting bolder. It was written to be around here. Then Dalen stops from walking as he saw a shadow of a monster approaching where he was standing. The body of that monster looks muscular with long and sharp nails. Dalen starts to prepare his weapon in case of an enemy attack. But he was shocked when he saw the monster. It was the bastard who ate him up while using his past character. The monster was growling, talking about his stomach and how hungry he was. Then a notification pops up saying that he discovered the corpse of a hunter who was eaten by a test human. A tip pops up saying that for corpses that have been eaten or absorbed by someone, you can inherit them by defeating the target. Looking at this monster who looks like a ghoul made Dalen happy. In his mind, who knew I would find him so fast? Luck is on my side. The ghoul was continuously saying that he's hungry while his saliva is going out from his mouth. In Dalen's mind, he is either a low-path demi-monster or a low-path boss-grade monster. Originally, it was a monster the size of an ogre who could easily crush buildings. The ghoul starts slurping. He says, "So much to eat today. Small ones do not fill my stomach anymore." Dalen said, "This one is still in unfinished form. It is early in the game, so it looks like he is still developing. But that is even better. I get to nip you in the bud." The ghoul had gone wild and jumped at Dalen, aiming to slash him with his claws. Dalen starts evading his attack and prepares a position to release a kick at the monster. He was able to land a hit on the left side of the abdomen of that monster, and it was a direct hit that made the monster thrown away. The monster was shaking and growling, saying that it hurts. His head hit the wall and create a wound on his head. Dalen starts cursing, saying that it was all a load crap when he saw that the monster's head starts regenerating once again. After the monster fully regenerates his wounded head, he starts jumping at Dalen once again. This time, Dalen, who was prepared for that attack, was able to slice the abdomen part of the monster, but even after that, Dalen started cursing because the cut wasn't deep enough. The monster started coughing and blood was gushing out of his stomach. Seeing the monster, who was already on his knees, Dalen raised his sword with a plan to end the battle. But before Dalen could cut him, that monster started crying and stopped him, saying that he was a person. His rationality now is in his human form, not that of a monster. Because of it, Dalen didn't continue to end his life. Dalen asks, "Have you come to your senses?" The monster nods and told Dalen that he is fine now. The monster starts crying and he says, "I didn't do it because I wanted to eat a person. Do you think I would want to do that? Those people planted a beast inside me." Dalen starts to get serious and asks the monster who are those people. The monster replied, I do not know who they are either. They had black robes and masks on. They used some weird potions and spells to turn me into this. Dalen asks him what the masks look like. Hearing that, the monster starts sweating and crying like he is in some sort of trauma. The monster said, a plain surface with a huge mouth painted on it. A golden mask. Dalen was somewhat annoyed thinking about it because as time passed, those guys would also become a pain in his mission. He plans to be better prepared for them as well. The monster starts to go crazy. He said, how could I eat people? To make the monster calm down, Dalen told him that it was not his fault. He told him that the people who turned him like that were the main culprits. Dalen promised the monster that he would make all those guys who made him like that disappear. Hearing that, the monster starts crying and thanked Dalen. Thinking that there were no threats anymore, Dalen sheathed his sword so he can continue for another journey. The monster said, thank you, really thank you. Those guys fed me with my daughter's flesh. They forced my mouth open and fed me her flesh and insides. But since he became a test subject, that monster felt hunger once again, lost his mind, and starts to attack Dalen. This made Dalen angry at those masked men. So, he picks up his axe and slices the neck of that monster. The head of that monster fly and falls to the ground. Dalen took a deep sigh and a notification popped up. It says you have eliminated the test subject. You have discovered the corpse of a hunter who was eaten by a test specimen. Looking at the dead body of this monster who just became a test subject makes Dalen angry and curses the world. But in order to become stronger, he still needs to retrieve the corpse within it. Dalen goes back to the nest of Sienna. Sienna asks, huh? You didn't return to the inn? Why? To get a drink? Dalen didn't say anything and he picked up the pouch that was tied in his hips and slammed it on the table. Dalen told Sienna that he got the wanted man. Sienna looked inside the pouch to confirm it and she was speechless at what she saw. Sienna said, all that talk about tearing a goblin into pieces. I guess the Galios Emporium's owner words weren't nonsense after all. Sienna said, anyhow, good work. Here is the 15 shillings. You completed the job faster than I expected you to, but that doesn't mean I can pay you more. Dalen starts picking up something in his hips and he said, this amount is more than enough to accept for a single walk. Dalen put up the pouch on the table. Sienna asks him, what is that? Dalen told Sienna that it was the victim's belongings. This made Sienna alarmed. Sienna asks, what should I make of the fact that you are handing these to me? Dalen replied, give it to the victims' families, and if not them, their friends. Accept this job's payment as the payment for doing all that. Sienna said, I am not some informant who extorts money using all sorts of excuses. Just keep the money. Dalen smiled and thanked Sienna for that. Dalen was about to leave the area and told Sienna that he will see her tomorrow. Sienna said, for the umpteenth time, please come during business hours. Dalen looked back and said, I will think about it if you offer me a drink instead of some tea. Sienna just takes a deep exhale and looks at Dalen slowly walking out her place. She looks at the pouch that Dalen left. In her mind, was he serious? That action wasn't like that of a mercenary at all. He doesn't look like a man who would simply be swayed by a sense of justice. Sienna smiled and said, what an interesting mercenary. I am sure he is capable. There is no harm in working with him. Dalen starts writing once again in his diary. What he wrote was, I eliminated a demi-monster that would later become a disaster beforehand. Also, I even retrieved his corpse. Dalen looks at his stat window and the new skill that he was able to retrieve was an E-rank night vision. Seeing the new skill made Dalen think about something. In his mind, as I thought, I must retrieve as many corpses as possible. At all cost, if I want to stop the future doomsday scenario that is nearing. A coven of witches burns down the town. Secret cultist in the city. A vampire counts invading the empire. And lastly, the evil god. He starts to remember about the time that monster was talking about the culprit who made him into that wears a golden mask. He starts to close his diary after writing his plans. He said, for now, I should do what I can. Paulshan's secret cult society. If I will let them be, they will eventually become a presence that cannot be ignored. But before that happens, I am going to tear them apart from limb to limb. The next morning, Dalen goes back to the crow's nest. He calls the bartender and orders a glass of melon Highlander. That order seems to be a code for Sienna to be called out, so the bartender pushes some button in the bar. Sienna goes out from the hidden door and she is annoyed. She said, "How long are you going to continue ignoring my instructions to come during business hours?" Dalen replied, "If you have a bartender and a customer, believe me, it is business hours." Sienna said, "Isn't your mouth lively?" Dalen asks, "So, who do I have to kill today?" Sienna replied, "Nope, not tonight. Come in for now. I need to talk to you about something." Dalen asks Sienna what she means about talking about something. Sienna walks to the door and looks back at Dalen. She smiled and said, "A specific job came in for a low-path hunter." Sienna offers tea for Dalen. Dalen asks, "Low-path hunter? What do you mean by that?" Sienna replied, "You don't know about it? That is your nickname. You have been running around low paths and alleys catching wanted people. It is no wonder you have earned the nickname. You spent almost every day of the last week handling jobs and shunned as dirty and dangerous." Dalen said, "However, there must be plenty of other bounty hunters here besides me." Sienna replied, "I guess it never occurred to you that your biggest frame stands out." Dalen asks, "So, what is it about that specific job?" Sienna smiled and starts showing Dalen some papers. She told Dalen that what is in her hands right now is his wanted bounty. Dalen starts to read the paper, and what he sees is that those wanted bounty is related to Magic Tower, which makes him start to question. Sienna said, "The Elagaius Magic Tower in the Fine Silver Zone has found you. To be precise, I am not speaking for all of Elgaius, but for one of the older mages." Dalen said, "I have only been active for a week, so how did the Magic Tower know my name?" Sienna told Dalen that it must be that one of his clients recommended him to the Magic Tower. Sienna said, "For it to reach the Magic Tower's ears, it must have been quite the encounter with someone high-ranking." "Did you meet someone high-ranking?" "Oh, there is someone who comes into my mind. The Bronze Guard Silent Company commander." Dalen agrees that the man that Sienna told him about is a big shot. In Dalen's mind, that man could have connections to the Magic Tower. "He is someone I would want as an ally if I could." Dalen asks, "So, what are the details of the job?" After that, Dalen is now ready to fulfill his bounty job. He's thinking deeply about it. In his mind, the request is Elder Mage's missing disciple. The only disciple of the Elder Mage of the Elgaius Magic Tower has gone missing in the sewers. One florin if I find a trace of him. If I bring him back alive, then double it. Mages treat their direct disciples like their own children. If all goes well, the Magic Tower could be indebted to me. I am sure it will pay off when the time comes. Sienna said she would send me a skilled guide. Then a girl suddenly approached Dalen and greeted him. She said, "Are you Dalen, the low-path hunter?" "Hello, I will guide you through the sewers for this job. I am Penny, the sewer cleaner." Dalen was speechless because the guide that Sienna sent was a child. Then both Dalen and Penny entered the sewers. Penny started guiding Dalen. She said, "The sewers are the foundation of this great city, aren't they? As a cleaner of the sewers, I am also responsible for the city's foundation." Hearing that, Dalen told her that it seemed she was too attached to her job. Penny proudly told Dalen that she was attached to this kind of job. Dalen said, "You could run into devil worshippers or criminals. Don't you think it could be dangerous?" Penny replied, "Of course, it is dangerous. The hard work pays off, though." Dalen thinks that Penny is very positive. Dalen asks, "How long have you worked at this job?" Penny told Dalen that it was about 3 years now since she started this job. Dalen said, "I hear most people don't last a year. You are a veteran, huh?" Then they stop walking. Penny told Dalen that this is around where the mark on the map is. Dalen thinks that this place must be where the disciple went missing. The place where the map is pointing looks like a ruined place. Dalen starts thinking. In his mind, the missing person is from the Elgaius Magic Tower. Obviously, they are Earth mages, so the underground sewers would be extremely advantageous to them. If he is a direct disciple of the Elder, he must be highly skilled. For someone of his caliber to be kidnapped, Dalen gets the gist of who must that person be. For him, it must be that guy, one of the biggest pains in the head among the cultists. When he fully develops, he will be called the one-man army. However, he is still a way off from completion. For the sake of the future, I must kill him now. Then Dalen was alarmed when he saw something shining, so he picked it up. Penny asks, "What is it?" Dalen replied, "A necklace cast with a single-use defense spell. I know they are given to each student of the Magic Tower." Also, the fact that the crystal is no longer lit means that the spell stored inside it is now exhausted, which means this was the mage's final destination. Dalen senses an approaching danger, which is why he starts to prepare his sword. He calls Penny and asks her if how good is she in terms of fighting. Penny told Dalen that she was good enough to defend herself. Dalen told her that it was good enough that she knew how to defend herself. He unsheathes his sword and points the torch in front of them to lighten what is in front of them. He told Penny to stay back for a moment, and a group of frog-like creature with a human body suddenly appeared. Looking at these monsters made Dalen annoyed. In his mind, a frogman. It is the lowest grade monster, but it has high intelligence and is tricky to handle. Penny starts preparing to battle as she has already taken out her hidden knife. Dalen looks at her thinking that he should not worry about her since she already knows how to defend herself. The frogman starts to jump at Dalen, aiming to ambush him with their numbers. But Dalen became a monster full of bloodlust. He was able to cut down one of the frogmen in half. But that doesn't end there. He swings his sword once again and slices two of the frogmen in just one slash. Dalen was full of blood from those frogmen he had slain a while ago. At that time, Penny became pale like she was shocked seeing something scary. She told Dalen to look over there. What Dalen saw was a huge army of frogmen slowly approaching them. Some frogmen even have weapons for fighting. Dalen brushed the stains of blood on his face. He said, "Maybe not an army, but you've got a whole company there." He smiled and said, "Well, not like it matters. Not after I wiped out every single one of you." Then he rushed to kill those frogmen. After that, Penny was amazed to see that all the frogmen were slain easily just like that. Penny runs toward Dalen. Dalen asks Penny if she is all right. Penny replied, "Pardon? Yes. Thanks to you, I am not injured. I have been a part of the clearing crew for 3 years. I can deal with two frogmen." Suddenly, Dalen raised his shield and told Penny to not come closer to him. Penny was confused, asking Dalen what he meant. A knife suddenly appeared and was thrown at him at a high speed. Luckily, Dalen noticed it and he was able to block that attack. He throws his sword and picks up his axe. He throws it on the dark area where that knife comes from. As soon as the axe reaches the area, a sound from the frog is heard, which means he was hit by that axe. Penny asks, "How did you know that there was still a frogman remaining?" Dalen replied, "Monsters become more ferocious when they hunt humans." Actually, Dalen used his skill of night vision to see what is hidden in the dark. Dalen told Penny that two frogmen were running and the other one was running away. Penny asks, "Then what should we do?" Dalen replied, "We need to go after it. Their lair won't be too far." Penny was too stunned. He was amazed at Dalen. He told Dalen that he was amazing because his fight just ended, but he was still full of energy. Dalen told Penny that there is no time for her to be amazed and they need to go and catch that frog. After following that frogman who tries to escape, they reach a large area. In the center of that is like a throne where a man was sitting. Penny got scared and stayed closer to Dalen. She said, "Someone is sitting over there." Dalen smiled and replied, "Who do you think it is?" "It is the person we are looking for." As Dalen looked at the man sitting in front of them, in his mind, "It is my first time seeing him personally." A pagan mage who was kicked out of the magic tower. Derek Valentino. The pagan mage Derek Valentino asks, "Who are you? Who touched my experimental specimen?" For Dalen, this guy was one of the bosses who gave me an unforgettable death. Dalen said sarcastically, "Am I not allowed to kill monsters that interrupt my stroll?" The pagan mage Derek replied, "No, this is strange. Normal people don't take a stroll deep in the sewers like you." Derek Valentino stomps his staff in the floor, said, "You didn't even chase the frogmen that ran away to their lair." After that, the water starts bubbling and another army of frogmen starts rising from the water. This made Penny scared and she became pale once again, and she slowly walks backwards to the wall holding her knife. The frogmen that rise from the water is not just a small army but a battalion of monsters that are approaching them. Penny thinks that if this many frogmen get into the city, then there is something bad that might happen. While looking straight ahead at the enemy, Dalen pats Penny's back to lessen her fright from the large army of monsters. Penny looks at Dalen. In her mind, if it is him, he might be able to kill all the frogmen, no matter how many of them there are. Derek ordered the frogmen to rip Dalen and Penny into shreds, and the frogmen start rushing at them. Dalen starts preparing his sword. It still has a stain of blood from the last battle. He starts walking forward at the large army of frogmen running towards them. Dalen said, "Please wait there, Penny. I will finish this quickly." In Dalen's mind, if the caster dies, the frogmen will disperse. Then there is only one answer. I am going to break through the middle and kill the caster. Dalen released his sword form and slashed any frogman that confronted him. With his speed and sword's precision, he was able to easily cut down the frogman and was able to break through easily. Another frogman tries to bite Dalen with his spiky teeth, but Dalen sliced that monster before it could harm him. But the number of frogmen was too many and they didn't even give Dalen time to take a break. They came in rushing again and again. Dalen used his fist and was able to take down two monsters in just one punch. After that, a group of frogmen jumped at him and he waved his sword to slice them down. After slicing down large numbers of frogmen, his sword reaches its limit and it starts to break down. The same happens on his shield. Because of that, Dalen has no choice but to fight this monster barehandedly. Large monsters swarm on him, but Dalen didn't falter. He shouted, "Let's finish this, you freaking ugly frogs!" He uses the skill of Dehaman's armored combat for the battle. Dalen became the monster itself and the first frog was punched in the gut with full strength. That frogman was thrown away from that punch and hit the other frogman who tried to attack. Seeing his underlings down, being beaten like that with just bare hands made Derek Valentino shock. He said, "That guy is a psychopath. Where did a monster like him come from?" After Dalen breaks through that ambush of frogmen, he can reach Derek and he picks up his axe to finish him. Derek couldn't believe that it happened just like that. Dalen jumps at the pagan mage and uses his full strength to slice him down with his axe. Derek met his end in the hands of Dalen after he received that slash of his axe in the head. Dalen was sweating after that battle. A notification pops up saying that he has discovered the corpse of a mercenary who became a pagan experiment. In his mind, yeah, he used me to absorb someone who had complete dragon blood into his body. That son of a guy. Thinking about it now, it was such a horrific scene. Then a notification pops up asking Dalen if he wants to collect the corpse. Dalen uses corpse collection and he gains a new skill. His stamina and other stats also increased and he was able to gain a rank skill, dragon blood regeneration. It is one of the many traits that come from dragon blood. It has been applied to humans. Although regeneration is one of the low-grade traits of dragon blood, for a dead person, it is a trait that they want more than anything. As the dragon blood was integrated into his body, Dalen felt intense pain as well as a power-up because of it. The aura of Dalen started to change. Even Penny was amazed to see that transformation with her eyes. The frogs even were stunned to see that Dalen fully recovered after those fights. Dalen takes a deep sigh, then he looks at the frogmen and smiled. He said, "Hey frogs, are you done?"